بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we micro. Alhamdulillah, we'll be talking about Birr al-Walidayn, being dutiful to parents. In this day and age, this is something that has become something that is very exceptional. It's out of, it's extraordinary that someone actually remembers, is respectful, is dutiful to his parents. But Islam puts a very strong emphasis on it. So just looks like our sampling size is not going to be that huge, but maybe brothers and sisters can just do a quick show how we feel, whether we've been dutiful to our parents very much or not so much. You guys want to do scan the QR code and just fill it in on your phones? Here, I'll scan my QR code and give my input. It's going to be anonymous. It's and that way you can get away with doing things like putting up a phone number on a marriage seminar, as someone did in Concordia. Fortunately, I called the guy out right away, and it was a fake number. Okay, so we get an idea that, alhamdulillah, some of us might have been very good kids, but really giving the right of our parents, really being dutiful towards them. And this is something that we should understand, that it's something difficult to really give the full right. And so inshallah, we'll cover a couple of points today. We're going to see what importance Islam gives to the parents. And we're going to get an understanding of the meaning of what does it mean to be someone who does birr, who's dutiful to his parents. And then on the flip side, what is uquq? What is the opposite of birr? We're going to look at to what extent we have to obey our parents, and at what point are we allowed to not obey them, or what point must we disobey them. Then we're going to look at some of the warnings on causing pain, causing stress, worry to our parents, and how can we repay our parents for whatever they have done. And then we'll leave it open to some questions. So the importance of parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إلي المصير. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that we have enjoined man concerning his parents. Allah gives special advice to the humans, to mankind, concerning his parents. His mother carried him through weakness upon weakness, and his weaning takes 2 years. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, give thanks to me and to your parents, and to me is the return. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding the human being. But before we get started on the ayat of Quran, in detail, being in a Western society, there are certain things we have to understand where there is a disconnect between a Western mindset and an Islamic mindset. There is a clear disconnect. So in a liberal, modern mindset, the prime, the fundamental building block of a society is the individual. We have to understand that. The fundamental building block of the society is the individual. The individual, his rights, his privileges. And if something is suppressing his rights and privileges, then that thing must be subdued. Now in Islam, we don't look at it the same way. There are certain things which take precedence over the individual. And amongst them is the family. The family in Islam is the fundamental building block of a society. So the rights and the freedoms and the privileges of this individual, they can be sacrificed if the demands of the family are higher. And here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding us about this. In a Western mindset, a child will say to his parents, "You brought me into this world. It was your job to feed me. You chose to do it. I owe you nothing. I have my own life to live. I have to take care of myself. I have to look out for my own interests." And like that, they will sacrifice the pleasure. They will sacrifice the contentment. They will overlook the sacrifices of the parents because they feel that it is their right. You brought me into this world. It was your job. I am entitled. It is my right to do what I want. I am born with these freedoms, with these liberties, with these privileges. Islam does not look at it the same way. There's an Arabic proverb. I was looking for the origin, and I found it from questionable sources. So the sources are not important, but the concept is important. The proverb goes, "Al-insan abdul ihsan." Al-insan abdul ihsan. The human being is a slave to the ihsan, to the good turns that were done to him. So when we look, who gave us, who did the most ihsan on us, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gave us such things that we cannot imagine. He gave us things that we did not know that we needed. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that we needed them. And then He gave them to us. Whether it be our parents, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is highlighting in this ayah. Whether it be our bodies that are functioning properly. Whether it be our digestive system, whether it be the air around us that we breathe. All of this is from Allah. Allah knew that we needed it before we knew that we needed it. An example that we give. When a child is born, what is the first thing that this child needs? Now usually the common answer is milk. The child needs nutrition. That's the common answer. Of course, people who have listened to my talk before know that that's not the answer. What does the child need most after oxygen? It needs defenses in its body. It needs defenses. So when we look at what the mother is providing the child, in the first 2-3 days, it is not milk. The mother is providing this substance called colostrum, where the bulk of the mother's defenses are transferred over to the child. The child came from a protected, from a secure environment, which was not exposed to all sorts of diseases, all sorts of bacteria and viruses. And now this child has come into this world, and he is exposed to all sorts of things around him. So the first thing that he needs is his defenses. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knew that before anyone else did. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided that to this child. Allah knew. We did not know what we needed. Allah knew better than us what we needed. And He gave it to us. So like this is one of the ihsan that Allah does upon us. This is just one of them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who takes whatever comes into the stomach of the child and causes it to nourish all the appropriate parts of the body. Is there anyone else who could do it? Did I know that I needed proteins? Did I know that I needed calcium? I did not know this. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did for us what no one else in the world can do. Allah gave us the highest, the biggest level of ihsan, even in this world. Even if we just look at the worldly life, Allah gave us the top of the top. And then over and above that which has to do with our akhirah, in terms of our iman, in terms of our hidayah. This is also there from Allah. But let's just talk about the worldly things. The one who gave us the greatest level of ihsan is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it was the obligation on the human being to be the slave of Allah. Al-insan abdul ihsan. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the top. Now next in line is the parent. The parents, they took care of this child. The mother, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, حَمَلَتْهُ أُمُّهُ وَهْنًا عَلَى وَهْنٍ. SubhanAllah. Those who have seen someone who is in pregnancy, those who are married, who have a wife, or those who have an older sister, family member, who is close to them, and whom they can see going through these phases, these stages of pregnancy. She wakes up, she has morning sickness, she's vomiting. And then this child which is growing within her, whether she gets proper nutrition or not, this child is taking the nutrition from her body, and it is getting its own strength. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is using the system, the body of the mother to nourish this child. So there is weakness. And throughout her pregnancy, there are changes going on in her body. She might have had the body of a supermodel before her pregnancy. After that, there will be changes that will take place. Bones will shift. Your tendons are going to stretch. All sorts of changes will go on in her body. One weakness upon another. But she bore it patiently for this child. She will never be the same. She will never be the same after this pregnancy. How much she is going through. وَفِصَالُهُ فِي عَامَيْنِ. And then she is nursing this child. Again, it is being taken from her body. Whatever nutrients need to be taken is coming from her body. She eats well. It's not as dire as when during the pregnancy. But the nutrients are being taken from her body. So for these 2 years, this child wakes up at whatever hour in the night. It wants food. The baby is crying. He cannot express himself. So the mother, she's tired from the whole day of feeding the child. Every hour or two, she's feeding the child. And now the child wakes up at 1:30 in the morning. She feels diaper is dirty. He's wet himself. Now she wakes him up. She wakes up, she tries to clean the child. Now the child, fountains on the bed. Now the mother, she has to clean herself. She has to clean the bed. She has to clean the child. Child is still crying because he's hungry. Now she takes the child to her chest and she feeds the child. And after the child is finished drinking, that would be the end of the story, right? That would be the end of the story. Except the baby does not know how to burp yet. The baby does not know how to burp. So what does the mother do? She takes the child, she's patting it, trying to knock the air bubbles up so that this child can burp. This gas that is within the stomach of the child is bothering him. And he's crying. He's in discomfort. I forgot to mention that the baby does not have enough strength in its neck to hold its head straight. So whenever the parents are holding the child, they have to hold its head. Otherwise, this child is going to damage its neck. So for 2 years, the mother, she is pushing herself. She is trying to get nourishment so that she can transfer it over to the child. So after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ. What is he telling this insan? أَنِشْكُرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيْكِ. Be grateful to me. Who put the love in the heart of your parents? Who caused them to take care of you? Who caused them to make such an effort to overlook your weakness? Honestly, if we look at it from a rational point of view, this child is, to put it crudely, this child is effectively useless. It can't do anything. It can't walk. It can't talk. It can't defend itself. It can't eat. It can't drink. It can't even hold its head up on its own. It can't burp. This child cannot do much. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the love in the heart of the parents. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who did it. So Allah wants us to be grateful to Him. And then, وَلِوَالِدَيْكِ, and to your parents. مَنْ لَمْ يَشْكُرِ النَّاسِ لَمْ يَشْكُرِ اللَّهِ. The one who did not show gratitude to people, he did not show gratitude to Allah. So Allah wants us to show gratitude to Him. He wants us to show gratitude to our parents. Be good to them. إِلَيَّ الْمَصِيرُ. From this we should understand, whatever you do in terms of Birr al-Walidayn, being dutiful to your parents. Sometimes you get along with your parents. Sometimes you don't. Nothing you can really do about it. You don't get to choose your parents. You don't get to choose your brothers and sisters. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose them for you and He gave them to you. And you might not like your brothers and sisters. But you must make silat al-rahim. You must join the ties of kinship. And for your parents, it's next level. How dutiful you must be to your parents. Why are we doing this? Because Allah is telling us, إِلَيَّ الْمَصِيرُ. You're going to answer to me about how you dealt with them. I gave them to you, and I knew the test that I would put you through. Allah knew. I didn't know. Allah knew what kind of test He would put me through. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to keep this in the forefront. That yes, He is going to ask us about this. So whether you get along with your parents or not, Allah says, وَاشْكُرْ لِي وَلِوَالِدَيْكِ. That's one thing that, from this discussion on being dutiful to the parents, and look at the family from, as the fundamental building block of society. We don't get that opportunity to say it's my rights, my privileges, I can do what I want. No, you have to do what Allah demands from us. We all have to do what Allah demands from us with respect to our parents. Another one hadith. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he asked Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Ayyul amali ahabbu ila Allah azza wa jalla? قال الصلاة على وقتها. Then he asked, قلت ثم أي؟ قال ثم بر الوالدين. قلت ثم أي؟ قال ثم الجهاد في سبيل الله. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, he asked his questions to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Which deed is the most beloved to Allah azza wa jalla? He said salat at its fixed time. So we understand salat at its fixed time. Kind of understand it. There's all sorts of funny things that are being mentioned about praying salat earlier or later. Salat at its fixed time is something that we must observe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about salat al-khawf in Quran. This is the salat which is read at the time of war, at the time of battle. And he describes that there is one group who will pray behind Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they'll be holding their weapons in case the enemy pounces on them. While there will be another group, they will be defending. They will be defending. And then after one rak'ah of salat, this first group, they get up and they go to the front lines, whereas this second group that was standing and defending, they come and they pray salat with the imam. So just I want you to think about that. There's certain masail which are established through this. One, there's the obvious one, which is the importance of salat in its due time. When salat, it was explained to us how to perform salat at the time of battle, when people are trying to kill you. When that salat has been explained to us and a concession has not really been given to leave salat at this time, then what about while we're at school, we're at work, we're in our offices? How punctual must we be? And this is something that we talk about to our high school students. Even though there is a directive, it is a matter. You do not miss the timing of your salat. Someone doesn't like it, it doesn't matter. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told you to pray in His time. And just some fun discussion that I have with my son's principal. He calls me, he says that, hey, tu sais qu'ils n'ont pas le droit de prier à l'école, c'est qu'il y a laïque, secular school and this and that. I say, yeah, I know, but what are the options? Either he prays outside in the cold and there's consequences on his body, he gets sick. Either he goes to some far place, finds a place to pray, and then he misses school, there's going to be consequences on his education. Or either he prays, and then you're going to give him some administrative consequence. Do what you got to do, man. I'd rather that he doesn't get sick and he doesn't lose on his education. Principal didn't have too much to say. So, we have to have importance for our salah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is explaining to Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu, what is the most beloved deeds to Allah? As-salatu ala waqtiha. Salat on its time. Then what? ثم Birr al-Walidayn. Being dutiful to the parents. So we understood the status of salat. Even in battle, we cannot leave salat. Birr al-Walidayn. Okay, where does it stand? ثم أي؟ قال ثم الجهاد في سبيل الله. We understand that going out in the path of Allah to establish the deen of Allah is something which is beloved in the eyes of Allah. We understand its status. That is something extremely important. So if between salat and its time and jihad fi sabilillah, standing up to establish the deen of Allah, Birr al-Walidayn comes in between, then we have to understand what is status being dutiful to the parents has. And this hadith, we mentioned a statement which comes mawquf, and it's also marfu'. Mawquf means that it ends on a sahabi, and marfu' means that it goes all the way to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this hadith also comes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. عن عبد الله بن عمر رضي الله عنه قال رضا الرب في رضا الوالد وسخط الرب في سخط الوالد. The pleasure of the Rabb is in the pleasure of the parent, the father. And the anger of the Rabb is in the anger of the father. Of course, this is with certain conditions, mainly being that they're not telling you to transgress the limits of Allah. But just so that we get a clear picture, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be happy with us, when the parents are happy with us. And if the parents are unhappy with us, then Allah will be unhappy with us. So it's something that we should take to heart. How important is keeping our parents happy. Now this hadith comes in different wordings. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قيل يا رسول الله من أبر قال أمك قال ثم من قال أمك قال ثم من قال أمك قال ثم من قال أباك. Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam was asked, O Messenger of Allah, to whom should I be dutiful? He replied, your mother. He was asked the second time, again he replied, your mother. He was asked the third time, again he said, your mother. And then he was asked a fourth time, and then he said, your father. So here we understand the necessity of being dutiful to our parents. And relatively speaking, how much more kind and obedient and loving and dutiful we should be to our mother compared to our father. And in the last hadith you read, رضا الرب في رضا الوالد. And now, so Walid is, I took a translation off a website, but Walid is generally the father. So the pleasure of the Rabb is in the pleasure of the father, and the mother, we're being informed that the emphasis is 3 times as much on her than on the father. So how much more should we be kind and merciful to the mother? And like we mentioned before, all these reasons, all the hardships that the mother went through. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has just made them like that they're so much softer. They're so much more caring. The fathers, we're roughneck. Just go gangster style, we don't care. Yesterday my daughter was sick, so my wife is being very careful with her. Like, here, take a Tylenol. We had a Tylenol for those breakable children one, and she gives her one piece. She tried to break it into quarters, and my daughter, she takes a piece and then she's like on the verge of vomiting. I'm like, all right, this is how we're gonna do it. We're gonna go into the room, we're gonna close the door. Now there's no more mom anymore. There's just abati. So now we're gonna do it abati style. We're gonna rough up, we're gonna tough up, and we're gonna take this thing. So now she knows that she's not gonna get that softness with the mother anymore. So now she just has to, chew it down and take this tablet. So sometimes the father's style is better, sometimes the mother's style is better. But the softness and the care and the love which is within the mother, it's unmatched. Father's style is different. The mother has something very, very special. And it's biological, it's physical. the time of childbirth, whatever, hormones which are being produced in the mother, she finds a strong bond, a strong connection to this child. A couple of years back, I saw this video where there's this cat, and her kitten was being born, there was a little duckling that was also born too. So now she treats this duckling as her own child. Normally, the duckling was lunch for her. But because of whatever happened at the time of childbirth, because of this physical bond that was created at that time, so she feels that this duckling is like her child. So I don't have the research to back it up, but I wouldn't be surprised if this type of phenomenon occurs with the mother when she gives birth to the child. So the father will be like, he'll know that it's his kid, it's his little buddy, but the mother will have something special. And the father, the kid doesn't listen to the father. You're not going to listen to me. This is how we're going to do it. But the mother, when the child doesn't listen to the mother, it hits her in a different way. So these ideas, this is being conveyed through this hadith. How much should we be dutiful to our mothers? Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu anha. She's the stepsister of Aisha radiallahu anha. So Asma radiallahu anha, her mother was not a Muslim. And Aisha radiallahu anha, her mother Umman, she was a Muslim. So one time, it's mentioned Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu anha قالت أتتني أمي راغبة في عهد النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فسألت النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أصلها؟ قال نعم. So Asma bint Abi Bakr radiallahu anha mentioned that at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, my mother came to me with some hope, with some expectation. One take is that I would be dutiful. Another take is that she was looking for some financial support. So she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that she is a mushrika. She is a polytheist. Should I join my ties of kinship with her? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said yes. Treat her well. Join your ties of kinship with her. Be dutiful to her. This is the meaning of this now. So even though she was not a believer, this is something that we need to understand. And this is something that we have to convey our convert brothers and sisters. They need to understand this as well. And mashallah, most of them do get this. They do understand that even though their parents are not believers, but what did we said at the beginning? Al-insan abdul ihsan. This is a proverb. The concept is correct. So these parents, even though they were disbelievers, they went through comparable hardships as believing parents go for their children, as believing parents do for their children. So even though a child becomes a Muslim, he does not have the right to be rude, to be mean to his parents. He should still join his ties of kinship to his parents, even though they are disbelievers. This is the status of Birr al-Walidayn, that we should be kind to them even if they are disbelievers. Okay, now we're going to make you guys fill in some stuff. So you can scan the QR code, and I just want to see, we're going to have a little word cloud that shows up. What comes to mind when we talk about dutifulness to parents, when we talk about Birr al-Walidayn? You can take your phones, go and scan the QR code, just throw in a couple of thoughts, what comes to your mind when we talk about Birr al-Walidayn. caring, respect, love, not hurting their feeling, obeying them. MashaAllah. Good. Making them proud. MashaAllah. Obedience. So we have everybody done, or there's still answers which are coming in? We're good? Show a thumbs up. We're good? All right. Inshallah. Making them proud. Yeah, life gets a bit hard if you're brown and your parents are like, where did you lose that 1% in your math test? You only got 99%? What's wrong with you? Where did that 1% go? Oh, I'm just messing around. We tried to make them proud. We tried to do all of these things. Inshallah. So, there's two aspects we want to touch upon. One of them is kindness to parents. Being good to them, honoring them, speaking kindly to them, keeping them happy, taking care of them. And life will go full circle. We come out weak, unable to do things on our own, dependent. And then it comes a time when we are independent and we think that we're on top of the world. And then we start going back down to a point that we are fully dependent again. And that second time is very, very hard on us. It's very hard on the parents because they were. Yeah, sometimes my son, he hits the gym and then he sees guys, they're bench pressing 2 plates and my bones have gotten weak and I look at the 2 plates and I used to be able to do that. And that's harder on me than the first time when I was not even able to do 2 plates. Then it was just a dream that, yeah, maybe I'll get to do it. But second time around when I knew I could do it, but now I can't do it anymore, that's twice as hard on me. It bothers me. So kindness to parents, to be good to them, to honor them. To honor them. Our teachers, if they would see, one time I had one of my teachers, rahmatullah alayhi, passed away. We had a couple of brothers in our class and his father had come to our school, our Islamic Institute. And the brothers were sitting and they were reclining on the wall and the father was like sitting away from the wall. So he started scolding them like, what is wrong with you? Your father's here and you're not letting him recline on the wall? You're reclining on the wall? I'm like, wow, that came on, very suddenly. So it was a surprise for me. But that is how we should honor them. There's something good, some good food in the house. We should present it first to our parents. Speak kindly to them. We should not ever be addressing them from their first name. It's a thing of informality, but this is a level too informal for what Deen allows us and what Deen has wanted from us. We look in the wives of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They would say, Ya Rasulullah, Ya Nabi Allah. And it's their husband. Come on. But still, there was that reverence that they showed. And like that, we should show reverence to our parents as well. Like, hey, Dad, give me some water. Like, who do you think you are? First, you should be bringing water to your father. You should be bringing water to your mother. You should not be a big boss and calling upon them. And if you're going to ask them, at least ask them in a respectable way. Keep them happy. And we'll touch upon this a bit more, because there's a lot to be discussed about keeping them happy. And ultimately taking care of them. A time might come where we will have to feed our parents like they used to feed us. A time might come where we might have to take our parents to the toilet like they used to do to us when we were children. So when that time comes, and it is hurting them already, it's already hurting them, they have to go through that. Let's not make it any harder on them. Say, oh, why can't you do it yourself? Do it. Know that Allah has given you this opportunity to gain your Jannah through them. Allah has given you the opportunity to make their khidmah, to serve them. It might not be easy, but do the best that you can. Second aspect of Birr al-Walidayn, and this is in particular while they're alive, is obedience to the parents. Obey them in what they ask you to do. Refrain from what they prohibit you. As a youth growing up in the West, sometimes it's challenging. I know it's challenging. But this does not change deen. Deen is deen, whether we find it easy, or whether it's a bit tough on our desires, on our nafs. So they will ask you to do things. And the rule of thumb is that we should obey them. They will tell us not to do things. Don't play with this one. Do not go to such and such place. They tell us to do that. The rule of thumb is that we should obey them. This is briefly dutiful to parents. So now going on to the next topic of discussion. To what extent must we obey the parents? So this general principle we present, لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. And then it comes in different wordings with the same general meaning, that there is no obedience to the creation concerning disobedience of the Creator. So whenever we talk about obeying the creation, then it comes with this caveat, that if what they're telling us to do entails the disobedience of Allah, then there is no scope for it. So long as what they're telling us to do does not include disobedience to Allah, there is scope. But when it entails the disobedience to Allah, then there is no scope. Hadith that's been mentioned, Musnad Ahmed. عن معاذ رضي الله قال وصاني رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بعشر كلمات. I'm just mentioning one of them. ومنها قال ولا تؤقن والديك وإن أمراك أن تخرج من أهلك ومالك. Mu'adh radiallahu anhu narrates Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam advised me 10 things. And from amongst these 10 things was, do not disobey your parents, though you may have to part with your wife or your entire wealth. So this is one limit of obedience which is required. So now this is as it is, but it goes with this principle that we had mentioned here. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. So we know that we must not make uquq. And uquq, I guess, we could have touched upon it earlier, we'll touch upon it now. Uquq literally means to cut something. Literally means to cut the ties of kinship. But when we use it with respect to parents, it's used in the opposite sense of birr. They're not just cutting the ties of kinship, but disobeying them, hurting them, being offensive to them, being unmindful of them. All of these things fall under the heading of Birr al-Walidayn. So he said, do not make uquq of your parents, though you may have to part with your wife for your entire life. So now let's get into a bit more detail on this, because sometimes this statement is very heavy, and it is a heavy statement. But what we have to understand is that ulama have discussed to what extent do we have to obey our parents. Now there are different aqwal on it. Some are of the opinion that you must obey them in those things which are sensible. Those things which are not sensible, but you cannot rationally discern why they're telling you to do it, you don't have to listen to them. That's one take. But I do not particularly like that take, because sometimes a parent will understand a lot more than a child, right? Many times it happens that the parent, they have a lot more life experience than the child. And experience goes a long way in many things. I'm just coming from the courthouse right now. There's masail of talaq going on. So I advise even the younger ulama, do not get into this marriage counseling yet. Get married, live a married life for 10 years, have your kids and stuff, understand what's up with marriage, and then get into the marriage counseling game. Don't get into it just like that, because experience in marriage will teach you what marriage is about. There are many rules which are there, but there's many things which are forgiven and many things which are overlooked for the overall good of the marriage, for the preservation of the marriage. So now, over here, one take is that you obey them so long as it's rational. If it's not rational, then you don't have to obey them. But then that goes against the sense of actually obeying, just the general command being obeying your parents. And rather, what we say is that obey your parents unless they tell you to disobey Allah. Obey your parents unless they tell you to disobey Allah. Now, there's a little bit of a gray line, gray area which comes in between. Show of hands, anyone here have an Xbox or a PS5? Okay, maybe if the crowd was bigger, sample size, someone might have something. So anyways, point being, that generally when a kid wants something, he'll present it to the parents, and the first thing the parents will be like, no, absolutely not. And then the kid will, now what's the kid going to do? Now he's going to start the negotiations. Come on, mom. I promise every Saturday morning I'm going to mow the lawn, and when it's snowing outside I'm going to shovel the driveway, and I'm going to mop the kitchen, and I'm going to do this, but please mom, let me get my PS5. Please mom, let me get my Xbox. So there's going to be that gray area in between where there's some room for discussion and negotiation. So Sharia has not shot down this negotiation and discussion. Of course, if we are just coercing our parents into doing something, then that's different. But if we get their rida, we get their consent, we make them happy, then they're going to be all right. Then this does not fall under the heading of Birr al-Walidayn. So now in this particular topic, this example that we talk about, if, say that someone in my situation, I have a wife, I have kids, I have a job, and now my parents tell me, you better divorce your wife, you better get rid of all of your money. Okay, Parents have said that. It was necessary to listen to the parents, unless they told me to make ma'asiyatillah. But I have a wife. Is it out of some personal spite they have with her? Because she gave up everything to be with me. And now if I'm just going to give her talaq just like that, and I'm not going to I'm not going to uphold the commandments and the limits of Allah, then I am going to fall into dhulm. I will fall into dhulm, into disobedience of Allah. Allah has made dhulm haram on himself, and He's made it haram on us. فَلَا تَظَالِمُوا. He says, do not commit dhulm upon each other. If I were to just give her talaq just like that, this would be dhulm on her. So that is not acceptable. If I were just to give every bit of my money away, but I have demands of the family, family has requirements in terms of their expenses and so on, I have nothing left. This will make me either fall into riba, or it'll make me unable to fulfill the rights, the basic rights and obligations towards my family. This will bring me into dhulm again. So at this point, I'm not allowed to listen to them, because they ordered me to disobey Allah. What they had ordered me to do would entail the disobedience of Allah. So at this point, it is not permissible for me to obey them. So, I want to get some input from you guys. How must we act if we don't agree with our parents' opinion? So there will be different types of disagreements we have with them. There will be some that we can negotiate our way out of. And there's certain that we cannot. So patience is always, and the fact that patience is the biggest word, that means most people threw that in there. So that is amongst the biggest things. Respect is something that can never be dropped. We can never lose respect for our parents, even if we disagree with them. Look up the fiqh. Okay. Look up the fiqh, ask an alim, basically understand what Allah demands from us. Yeah. So we should see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands from us in that situation. Sometimes, we are off. We think that we are right, but actually we find out that we are wrong. Just, was it Sunday night? One of these nights, a couple of nights back, we got a call that there was a girl. She ran away from home to get married to a guy. They've been having a relationship. Both are 16 years old, both want to get married. So I understand that they want to keep it haram. And I understand that they're in a dangerous situation, that it might become haram real fast. But it's a tough one, because you want to have the rida and the pleasure of the parents. And there's further masail which come with respect to nikah and the wali and so on. So this, it's a very involved discussion. But bottom line, if they do get married and the parents did not even have an opportunity to present their expectations, their hopes, their concerns, and they were not given a chance to even be convinced, then this is problematic. Dua tahajjud, that Allah soften their hearts, definitely. Now the one thing, the first one that we talked about, or second word, respect. That even when we disagree with them, we have to disagree with them respectfully. They tell us to do something haram. I want you to divorce your wife now. They might do that. Now, even though it is completely out of line, we're not supposed to obey them. But with softness, with respect, with kindness and love, we have to let them know, Mom, I'm sorry. Dad, I'm sorry. I have a responsibility. I have to uphold the commandments of Allah. And I recognize everything that you've done for me. I do not deny any of it. You took care of me when I was sick. You did everything for me. You earned for me. Your sweat, your blood, your tears were there for me. But what you're asking me to do is past what I am allowed to do. So with kindness, with softness, we let them know that what they have demanded from us is out of line. This is not, them being wrong does not give us the permission to be harsh with them. Which brings us to our next point on warnings on causing pain to the parents. Today it has become the norm that we cause pain to the parents. The obedient child is like that special, extraordinary case. Otherwise, the disobedient, the problem child, they're considered normal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِندَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فلا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل لهما قولا كريما. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that He has decreed that you are not to worship anyone but Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا, that you should be kind, should bring ihsan, good treatment to your parents. And He talks about now this later stage in life which comes. If one of them reaches old age, one or both of them reach old age in your presence, فَلَا تَقُلْ لَهُمَا أُفٍّ, do not even express this word as much as uff, something to show that you're tired of them, that you're fed up. Don't do that. وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا, do not repel them. What are you doing? Can't you ever get it right? Can't you tie your own shoes? Can't you eat yourself? Always dropping food on your shirt. وَقُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. All of these things will cause them pain. We are being forbidden from even doing the least thing, just this spontaneous. Might be a spontaneous. But if we have to be mindful that we do not do this type of thing even. That's what we've been told to avoid. Do not repel them. Do not go after them. Do not trash them for the mistakes they make. When you were a little kid and you couldn't tie your shoes. When you were a little kid and you used to dirty your shirt while eating. They used to destroy you for that. They did not. They dealt with you patiently. قُلْ لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. Speak to them in a noble manner. This is what we've been told to do. We've been strictly prohibited from being rough with our parents. Touching on repaying our parents. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions, لا يجزي والد ولا يجزي ولد والده إلا أن يجده مملوكا فيشتريه فيعتقه. A child cannot repay his father. Whatever his father has done for him, he cannot repay him. Unless he finds him as a slave, he has become a slave, he buys him, he sets him free. He gives him life again, so to speak. This is one way that a child can repay his parents, his father. Now, in a bigger narration, one person, he said that Ibn Umar saw a man going around the Kaaba while carrying his mother on his back, saying that I'm your humble camel. And if her camel gets scared, well, I'm not going to get scared. Then he asked Ibn Umar radiallahu anhu, do you think that I've repaid her? Look, I was making tawaf with her on my back. Did I repay my mother? He said, not for a single groan, for a single contraction. What hardships did the mother go through? Well, giving him and bringing him into this world by giving birth to him, she went through a lot of hardships. So no matter what a person thinks that he was doing, he thought that he did something great. Inshallah, it's good. It's good that you did that. But does that pay them back for all that they have done for you? It does not. And this is being expressed that even for one groan of a contraction, she had this discomfort. You were walking around the Kaaba with your mother on your shoulders, you think you're doing big stuff, but you were very far from fulfilling her rights. You were far from paying her back. So these are a couple of ways that we see what is the value, how can one pay his father back, and what actions do not even consist of properly paying them back. But one thing to remember, Sahabi mentions, كنا عند النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال رجل يا رسول الله هل بقي من بر أبوي شيء بعد موتهما برهما. Is there anything, any part of birr, of my parents, dutifulness towards my parents, does any portion remain that I can still do after their death? Is there anything that I can still do? قال نعم. Four things. الدعاء لهما. First thing is to make dua for them. والاستغفار لهما. Seek forgiveness for them. إنفاذ عهدهما. That he fulfills their whatever promises, pledges they had made. The person, he fulfills those things. وإكرام صديقهما. وصلة الرحم التي لا رحم لك إلا من قبلهما. That the fourth thing is that you're kind to their friends. You join ties of kinship with those people whom you had no connection. You had no connection to them except through your parents. Your parents were kind to certain people. You never met these people, but because your parents were there, they took care of them. So now, you do the same. So during the lifetime, what was there? There was being kind to them, being obedient to them. Being kind to them, being obedient to them. After they've left this world, then what is left to do? We make dua for them. We keep on making dua for them. In some places it's customary that we'll make a dua after the 3rd day and the 10th day and the 1 month and the all sorts of random anniversaries. Really, the time to make dua for our parents is every single day. رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي صَغِيرًا. We make dua for them. Say, Ya Allah, and this dua is mentioned in the Quran. Oh Allah, have mercy on them. رَبِّ ارْحَمْهُمَا كَمَا رَبَّيَانِي. How they took care of me. How they were merciful for me. They took care of me when I was small. Ya Allah, now you have mercy on them. So he makes dua for them, he makes istighfar for them. He takes care of their promises, of their pledges, of their agreements. They had a mission, they had an objective. Parent, father, he wanted to do something. So now he leaves the world, and he leaves his legacy behind, his inheritance. So he has 3 kids. He leaves $3 million behind. One kid, he takes his million, he's like, all right, let's go Bugatti. And he's ready to get his Bugatti. Second one says, you know what, I've been waiting to buy myself a house. Third one says, Dad, I know I'm still renting some ugly apartment. And I know that you had a mission in life. You wanted to establish this institute. You wanted to establish this masjid. You wanted to establish this foundation. Dad, I know that's what you wanted. You left this money behind. I'm going to do it. People might go, they might get their Bugattis, they might build their homes. I'm also in the need of a home. I would also like a new car. But I know my father wanted this. He had this vision. He had this mission. And I will uphold it. This is the proper birr of the Walidayn. And this is the birr that Sahaba radiallahu anhu gave to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That he left the world. Imagine Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's sending him to Yemen. And he is giving him instructions. And he lets him know, when you come back, chances are you're not going to see. Imagine how much love they had, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had for Mu'adh ibn Jabal. Mu'adh ibn Jabal radiallahu anhu had for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But he knew that this was the mission of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is what he spent his days and nights. He spent his days in da'wah. He spent his nights in dua. He did this, so I'm going to stand up on the same thing. And he proceeded, he went forward. He gave the right of what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had demanded. What Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was trying to do, what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave the right to do, to convey the message, to make tabligh of the message. They also, Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they saw it, they followed it, they acted upon it. They did their best to fulfill the pledge, to fulfill the message of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So now sometimes our parents, they'll have something they wanted. They wanted to do something. So we try to do the same. We do what we can to fulfill their pledge. And the last is, they had friends, people they would talk to, people they were friendly with. We have no reason to be friends with these people. I don't know them. I mean, I see them. Some of them are respectful to me. Others are disrespectful to me. There's one of my dad's friends. I'll see his number, I'll say, Assalamu alaikum, like, hi. Like, okay, hi, no problem. If it was a kid, I'd be like, what? Hi, what? No, come back here. Assalamu alaikum. That's what I do with the kids. The kids who are studying at our place, they come with a hi, bye. I'm like, hi? What? Get over here. You're not going to hide me here. There's nothing Muslims here. Assalamu alaikum. This guy makes it a point to hide by me. I'll take it. Tolerate it. Tolerate it for my dad. And then the time comes that our parents go. So even these guys we didn't like, or we might not have seen eye to eye with them, but we keep being good. We keep doing what our parents would have done because this is what our parents would have wanted to do. And this is one of the things which are mentioned in this particular hadith. And then, along with that, there are the general things that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in terms of sadaqah jariyah that we can be doing for our parents, for those who have left the world. علم ينتفع به ولد صالح يدعو له صدقة جارية. One thing that we do is we make it a point to build a well for every one of our, or we make a well for the collective of our, the deceased in a certain time frame, so that we are showing this dutifulness to our elders, to our parents. Inshallah, maybe Allah will show mercy to us as well. Okay, before we get to questions, just wanted to highlight a couple of incidents that come from our pious predecessors. So it comes in hadith that there was one Sahabi, and he was on his deathbed. He was not able to recite the Shahada. He was dying and he was not able to recite the Shahada. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him that, what is your issue? It's like, my heart feels blocked. I cannot, I want to, I know I should, but I can't do it. So after Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he dug in a bit deeper. He saw that this Sahabi had actually gotten his mother unhappy. His mother was unhappy on some minor thing. And then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to her and he asked her that please forgive him. It's like, he's hurt me. And he asked her that, so say that hypothetically we were to take a bunch of wood and throw him into the fire. Would you like that? Would you be okay with that? It's like, absolutely not. No, never. It's like, well, if you're not going to forgive him, then that's what's going to happen to him, effectively. So at this, she got ready. She forgave him. And then after that, he was able to take his shahada. He passed away. That's one story about one person. There are other stories that come in hadith on the du'as and the bad du'as that our parents make for us. We know that the du'as which are most readily acceptable are the du'as which are made in the last third of the night, the du'as which are coming right after the fard salawat. And amongst them is the du'a that a father makes for his son, or the parent makes for their child. So there's something we should not underestimate. How can I get the du'as of my parents? We get the du'as of our parents, we get the du'as from the hearts of our parents. That we do something, we make them happy. We take care of them. And then they feel such a joy, they're like, oh, my son. And they're so happy about, and we get the du'as from their hearts. There's many of us who experience this, that we have taken on an undertaking which was very difficult, which was borderline not manageable. But we got the du'as of our parents, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made things easy for us. So make it a point that you get the du'as of your parents. Make it a point. Another person who went through some hardships, Imam Bukhari rahmatullahi alayhi. At a very young age, his mother was very close to him, and by the age of about 11, he had memorized the books of Abdullah ibn Mubarak rahmatullahi alayhi. And then his mother was a widow at that time. After having gone to the local ulama and having gained ilm from them, which was the tarteeb of gaining knowledge, that a person would go to his local scholars and he would take as much knowledge from them as possible. And once that was done, then he would extend the scope. Then he would go out, he would travel, and he would seek knowledge further. So Imam Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi, he had taken the knowledge which was locally available, but his mother was alone. So what did he do? He said, you know what, let me stay back with my mom, which would have been an option. But he hit an option number 2, that take mom with you for studying hadith. So he took his mom through a rigorous journey, traveling, going all distant places while seeking his knowledge of hadith. And his mother she was very attached to him. She made a lot of dua for him in his early ages, in his early days, early years. And like that, he had her dua throughout. And Imam Bukhari is, along with whatever other good qualities he had, which were many, many great qualities, but amongst them was Birr al-Walidayn, how he was to his mom. So these are a couple of points. If there's any questions you guys have. Any questions, scenarios in your minds that you're...
I think in Surah Luqman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks of not obeying your parents if they say to shirk.
Yes.
And he said, وَصَحِبُهُمَا. Like, could you expand on this word? And
let me just pull up the ayat.
Do you want me to continue the video with the questions or to?
No, it's okay. It's okay. This is the bulk of. فلا تطعهما وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا. So this is the same concept that we discussed earlier, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, we had Lay al-Masir, the first, we quoted that first part of the ayat, and then it's talking about if they try to force you to make shirk, then you should not. Again, you do not obey them in matters which are disobedience to Allah. But Muslim or non-Muslim, remain in good company with them. Remain kind to them. وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا, in a good way, in the known way, in the way that is expected of good people to remain with their parents. Be kind to them, obedient on those things which you are allowed to be obedient on, soft and kind, and making them understand in matters which you know that you cannot obey. That's the basic gist of what this ayat is telling us. Shirk, which is the highest level of disobedience, and anything below that, we cannot obey them. But Muslim, non-Muslim, Muslim, of course, they will not tell us to do that. Even if they are non-Muslim, even if they're mushriks, even if they're people, look, if your life is at stake, you run for your life, right? It's a different type of scenario. But if they're ready to be with you in a respectable, in a safe manner, then be with them in that manner. Be with them, be safe with them, be good with them, be kind with them. We see this from the life of Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, his father, he remained home while Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went along with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu for hijrah. But even though he was not ready to accept Islam at that point, but the dealing that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had with him, that his daughters had with him, meaning Abu Quhafa's granddaughters, they dealt with him in a kind and respectful manner, that he was, at some point, he came into the fold of Islam. So this is the gist, that be good, be respectful with your parents, even if they're non-Muslims.
Yes. And if I can follow up, Sayyidina Musa alayhi salam Allah, like there was Musa, which was her biological mother, but the one who raised him were Fir'aun and Sayyidatuna Asya. Is there a bill for this?
I believe the main one that took care of him was still his mother. Allah had made it such that she would come back and she would nurse him in the palace of Fir'aun. So Allah made that thing go back full circle. Now, in terms of what Fir'aun did, I don't think Fir'aun was really part of the picture. Allah Alam. I don't have further insight onto that. Later we see that when Fir'aun is trying to gaslight Musa alayhi salam, that and you're the one who did this after I took care of you. You killed that person after I did everything for you, and then you enslaved the entire Bani Israel, and now you're trying to talk about this one good thing that you did for me. So I don't particularly, Fir'aun is a whole different, different case.
What about in general, like if you have stepmother, do you have any duties towards her?
Look, in the sense that someone who did good to you, you should be good to them. And you see, either you're going through this way, or either you're going through that way. Because if you're going to look through the fact that she took care of me, she was kind to me, she fed me, she this and that, so I should be someone who's dutiful to her. This is the demands of someone being respectable and being a decent human being, right? Anyone does something good to you, you should be kind, you should be respectful. But even if she was pure trash, even if, then you go the other way, that I would have no connection to her except for the fact that she was married to my father. So because of this fact, I will do birr to my father by doing birr to her, right? Because he would have wanted that I treat her respectably, respectfully. So whether he's there, whether he's gone, if he's there, he sees it in front of him, it's giving him peace of heart that my son is a decent human being. Now, if a person did not get a chance to do that in his life, then he realizes, oh man, I should have been, now my father's gone. And the woman is still there, stepmother is still there, and she's still very rude to us. I say, you know what? My dad would have wanted, my connection is through my dad, and I would not have had any connection to her. So I will still be kind, I'll still be dutiful to her, because this is being dutiful to my dad. So now that level of obedience is not there. The obedience which was remanded from towards the parents is not there, because she's not eligible to that. She did not, she's not in the position of the parent as such. But the kindness and the respect and so on, that should be there.
And also, do younger siblings have any rights towards their elder brothers and sisters?
Do the younger siblings have any obligations to their elder brothers and sisters? And the demands of decency, yes. It's not at the same status of Birr al-Walidayn, because they're just, it's not the same. But there's always respect towards the elders. This is what, which cements and which strengthens that family unit. When I know that someone is dependent on me, and he knows that he can look up to me to take care of him, then this two-way bond which exists, this is what strengthens this relationship. If a person, he just feels like, I do whatever I can, anyone helps me, great. If they don't help me, it doesn't matter. Then he will never be connected. He will never feel close to anyone. And no one will particularly feel close to him. But when there is that two-way bond which is going, that the father knows that the children are dependent on him, that he is responsible for their needs, and the children know that they can look up to their dad, and they know that he is going to be working and he's going to be making his best efforts to take care of them, then that expectation, that two-way relationship, that strengthens the bonds. So in the same way, a big brother, sometimes the big brother becomes the man of the house. Sometimes he doesn't necessarily need to be the man of the house, but sometimes he's going to help with the raising of the children, with the upbringing of the children, with disciplining of the children. So that two-way bond is there in a slightly lesser capacity, but that is what's going to strengthen the bond between these different members of the family. And although it's not Birr al-Walidayn, but it's Silatul Rahim, which is also something which is heavily emphasized on in Deen. So that being more than far, even with cousins and third cousins twice removed and this and that, you would have this type of, you would still be demanded to make Silatul Rahim with those distant relatives. So what about the brothers and the sisters? Any other questions, scenarios?
I have a scenario question.
Yes.
I worked with Muslim girls who were in elementary school, and sometimes they would come with complaints, which were very legitimate complaints about their parents. And because they lack emotion, and they know that they have to obey their parents and respect their parents, but because the parents are not religious themselves and they only use these ahadith, for example, these ayat to say that you have to obey, and then these children, they don't really have emotional intelligence to differentiate between, because they don't have a religious upbringing as well.
Yeah.
So they don't really make an effort. They have resentment for their parents in their heart, and then by extension, resentment for Islam as well, because they just feel like Islam is allowing these injustices upon them. So what would you say about these types of scenarios? And then they don't really make an effort to have a relationship with their parents, because the parents also don't make an effort. So what would you say about that, especially if they're young?
The answer would go, what would immediately come to my mind is that somebody else would have to fill the shoes of the parents, so to speak. They're not getting the love that they need. They're not getting the upbringing that they need. They're not getting the help that they need. So, I'm a believer, so to speak, in the statement that it takes a village to raise a child. That there's going to be different people that are going to be there at different points in time. And if the parents are not the ones who were there at that point in time, then someone else needs to be there, because otherwise what's gonna happen? These kids are gonna go off track, and they're gonna take my kids off track too. You know what I'm saying? So, even if it's difficult for me, or we have to figure out someone in the community that's gonna stand up and say, you know what, we have to take care of these kids, we have to do something, they're our children. And, you know, while there's this deficiency, it's coming from the side of the parents. But when these other people step in, now hopefully they'll be able to give them what they need for their development, their emotional development, their, you know, their psychological development. Clear things that, you know, we can see when there's a deficiency in, we can see it in their behavior, we can see it in their learning, we can see it in all sorts of ways. And it affects us. It affects the kids around us in our institute. So this is what I would say, that someone, you know, they need someone. There's a gap in their process. If the parents are not going to fill it, someone else needs to come and fill that gap. And then this person, inshallah, he will become the means of protecting many, many kids. And then later on, they'll be able to, they're going to understand, you know, what was going on. But bottom line, if the community doesn't find a solution to it, then they're going to go out without a solution. They're going to go with this deficiency. This is the model that I have seen that has been beneficial to us in our community. When we are able to, you know, catch that there are some kids who are going through this, and we try to line up someone who can take care of them, help them out through this difficult patch in their life. And then, alhamdulillah, quite a few kids have been, they were able to get through this, and they're able to see past this, you know, this weaponization of deen. This is, you know, one thing that worked. This is not necessarily the final, it's not necessarily the best answer, but it's currently what we've been working with, and we've been fortunate enough to have some people who will help us out in this, that we are able to pull it off. But if you have suggestions, we're open to suggestions too.
One last thing, if your mother, let's say she has cut ties with a sibling of hers, do I have to silat rahim with this uncle or this aunt, or do I? And I know it will, let's say, affect my mother. Like she wouldn't want me to contact. Do I keep it minimum? Let's say.
You have been told to obey your mother so long as she doesn't tell you to disobey Allah, and you have been told to make silat rahim. So you got to be diplomatic about it. You got to figure out a way to make silat rahim.
That's not my case, but
I mean, hypothetically, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, the thing is that we see all types of cases like this. That it's not, unfortunately, it's not that abnormal. But what Deen demands from us is that we join ties with that person. We make silat rahim with them, and we try to keep our mother happy. And now it's going to be a bit of a navigation to do between the two, but ultimately this is what Allah demands from us. We're not going to be able to say that, you know, I just listened to what my mom had to say, but what your mom had to say was wrong. You went against the commandments of Allah, so you know, it didn't work.
But what that person would do, he was telling me, do the minimum, which is like, let's say, calling during Eid, Ramadan, on occasions. He was like, he would call it like, or would that be permissible, or silat rahim is more than that?
No, silat rahim is, there's different degrees of it. So, you know, if you can do more than that, and you can, look, you're gonna have to negotiate, you're gonna have to navigate your way through it. If you, sometimes just the fact that you called him for Eid, you know, your mom's gonna like blow a fuse. Wow, we got him, I told you not to call him. So like whether you call him for Eid, whether you send him an Eid gift, whether you visit him twice a year or 3 times a year, it doesn't matter. She's already blown her fuse, right? So there is no hard and fast on that. It's, you have to navigate the situation between keeping your mom and really what you want is, Islam wants a strong connection between the family members. It doesn't want just like, now if there's a reason to keep it just superficial, fine. Maybe this person is like legitimately toxic. That's a possibility, right? So if they're legitimately toxic, you're gonna go and they're gonna start talking, hasad and this and that, and like, bro, I do not need this in my life. So I say, keep it superficial. Assalamu alaikum, order something on Amazon and have it shipped to their house. Eid gift for the kids and whatnot, because you don't want this, it's gonna end in ghiba and botan and this and that. So you're like, you know what, keep it superficial. Like you need help, you need this, you need a ride from the airport, you know who to call. Don't call anyone else before you call me. But if it's not toxic like that, then ideally we want to strengthen, want to bring the ummah together. So that's what we should be striving for. Yeah.
Time is pretty much up, but maybe I will ask the question. What would be insights from the story of Sayyidina Ibrahim and his tyrannical father? What would be main insights to navigate the situation from the
Well, from his story, we see that he was kind to him. Always he used, kind and affectionate words for his father. And he did what he could to convey to his father to give him da'wah. He tried different things to make him understand. So there is that well-wishing which was there. There is that being kind to him which was there. And ultimately he was exiled by his father when he was not ready to change his ways. He was not ready to stop his da'wah, and his father told him to get out of here. Then he made a promise to him that I'm going to make dua for you. Now that dua was something that Ibrahim alayhi salam, he had made a promise to his father, so he fulfilled that promise. But other than that, he had to safeguard his own deen. He had to safeguard himself. And as we know, the dua for the people who has become clear that they're not on iman, there's not much scope for us to make a dua for their forgiveness. But there's always this this concern that he had for his father. And being, sometimes people, they say that, I told my son to pray, he doesn't pray. Now he'll go to Jannah. Okay, yeah, I mean that's an objective statement, but it's like, it doesn't show the love and concern. Then you try to make him understand in different ways. Try to make him feel the message. So Ibrahim alayhi salam, this is what he did, with his people, with his nation. He goes and he breaks up all the idols, and then they're like, "Who did this?" Like, that's the big one. He's got the axe. It's a piece of wood. He can't do anything. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's not what we meant. So this concern that he had, in terms of Birr al-Walidayn, he had this concern for the entire, for the people around him, how the people could come onto Hidayah, and even more so for his father. But that was the big thing that we take from it, along with his kindness, soft words to his father, never speaking to him harshly, never putting him down. Something that we should learn for today as well. There was one scenario that I was going to talk about, and we'll keep it relatively brief. it's one of the most stereotypical issues that faces many people. The battle between the mother and the wife. You know what I'm saying? It's pure stereotypical stuff. And people go through pretty big hardships with it. Even our people. So again, we look at these same principles, and this guides us through it. That my mother is my mother. Now, in terms of who the mother, or the son, who has the most right on him is his mother. And in terms of the wife, who has most right on her is her husband. So, but the rights of one cannot encroach on the rights of the other. The obligations to one cannot encroach on the obligations of the other. This is the important point. This is the key point. That if a person is taking care of his wife, that does not permit him to disobey and to ignore his mother. And if he's taking care of his mother, then that doesn't mean that. Like sometimes there'll be spikes when he has to do a bit more for her. But in general, in a normal case scenario, he'll be dutiful to his mother, and that'll still give him time to fulfill his obligations to his wife. So this is how a person should be. So ultimately what it comes down to, now who is at fault in this? Kind of everybody, but the biggest fault, or the biggest onus, is on the boy, is on the guy, the son/husband. He has to navigate this scenario, the situation where both of these competing people are there who need his attention, his time, and so on. He has to find a way to organize himself, make his tartib with his time and so on, so that he's giving each of them their rights. That way he's doing his Birr al-Walidayn, especially to his mother, and at the same time he's keeping his marriage sane. And there are many principles that we use to figure out what the situation is, to achieve the end result that we're trying to achieve, right? There are many tools that we have, but there is no final answer which is ever given to us. Just to give you another thought process on this, that when a person he understands, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu qu anfusakum wa ahlikum nara. Save yourselves and your families from the fire. So he has to raise his children. He has to save them from the fire. What does that mean? That means before they become baligh, he has to have taught them, and he has to have instilled the practice into them that they are acting upon the commandments of Allah. Some people ask, will you force your daughter to wear hijab? Would you force your daughter to go to school? Now you got them in a bad position, because they're going to force their daughter to go to school. They're going to force their son to go to school. So what, going to school is more important than obeying the commandments of Allah? And they're like, yeah, that's what I thought. So the goal is not to force them. The goal is never to force them. The goal is to instill this practice, whether it be through means of encouragement, whether it be through means of incentivizing things, whether it means through discouraging them and warning them, or whether it be through means of removing some privileges. Now you figure out what are the tools in your toolbox, and how can you use these tools to achieve your end goal. See what I'm saying? So some kid, you tell him, in Jannah you're going to get all sorts of candy. He's like, okay, I'm down. Allah Akbar, and he's praying. the other kid, you tell him about Jannah, he's like, Jannah's so far away, man. It's like, okay, come, let's go to the masjid. We'll get you a, stop by the dollar store and we'll get you a 4 fund. So now, great. That worked for this one. Third one, he's like, oh, Jannah, but what will Jannah's candies taste like? Well, you want, I can't tell you what Jannah's candies will taste like, but here, let's take a bite of this 4 fun and you'll get a sneak preview. So, you're sort of mixing it up for different people. There's no one answer fits all. We have these different principles that we're working with, and with that, we can, inshallah, we can solve the different problems that we're facing. So this is why, in topics like this of social things, we're looking for that, solution. I remember one of my teachers, he did a course on, family. It was about the family life in Islam. So this topic of mother-in-law, daughter-in-law was like everybody was waiting for it. They're like, oh, so what happened? How are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to? It's like, man, I can't give you an answer. I can't give you like the roadmap. Every situation, like the outside looks the same, but inside, there's different workings, and something's gonna work here, something's gonna work there. So I don't have that final answer for you, but we have these principles in front of us. Tools we can use, and then inshallah we try to navigate to get to the final answer.
And just quickly regarding the wife and the mother, isn't per definition marriage being a contract, so the rights and duties are clear, and the duties are a bit finite for the wife, while for the mother, birr is a bit like you can always do more. Like it's a bit, because it's ihsan, you can always.
I wouldn't. You see, there's some people that look at marriage, from a qada'an point of view. That what qada'an is due from husband to the wife and wife to the husband. So, like, if it's brought to, Islamic court, then the judge, the qadi, will say that, all that's needed from me is to, or the judge will tell the woman that all that's needed from you is to make yourself physically available for your husband. You don't have to cook, you don't have to clean. But is that going to promote a healthy relationship in the house? Probably not, right? So if we're going to look at it, from that point of view, then it's not going to be, limits should be set. Okay, I need to go and I need to spend. I need to help my mom. I need to take care of this, and I'm going to be there for this. Negotiate and establish. Allah has made الرجال قوامون على النساء. This is not a question of entitlement. It's a question of responsibility. These two things come hand in hand. Where there's privilege, there's also responsibility. No one ever had privilege without being responsible for something, without having a liability on his neck. So you have a privilege, and you also have responsibility. And sometimes it's not fun to navigate that responsibility. So that is his position, that he has to navigate it. It's not a comfortable one, but he has to do something about it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
On the topic of marriage, the relationship between the husband and wife, it obviously impacts the children.
Absolutely.
So this is also another scenario-based question. What if a child, now they're no longer in the position where they can affect other children in a bad way? They're grown and they have understanding, and the problems between the husband and wife are affecting the children. And this child is grown enough, and the children also, the husband and wife, they don't really want to find a solution to their problems. What would you say? So the family dynamic is not normal. What would you say to that?
Repeat the question.
I'm saying for a person, a young person stuck in a situation where their parents have problems between themselves, and those problems affect this child in every single way, and there's no solutions being sought between the husband and the wife. How would you advise this person in that situation, because like the person that I was speaking to, she was telling me that she finds it difficult to not like there's also a sense of resentment, of course, because you know she's being directly affected by something that she didn't really cause.
Yeah. So with this little information that I have, I would immediately would come to mind is there's a certain accountability to the parents. They probably do want to see their kid, even though they're not the best influence on them, I'm guessing. So this kid should probably, be present in some capacity at home. Avoid it, like a running away type situation. But if the parents are, that careless of what is going on, they kind of see the kid at home, they're like, hey kid, what's up? And then they're completely oblivious to what else is happening. Then she probably wants to attach herself to a different environment. If there's a good positive environment somewhere close by that she can attach herself to. That's sort of my thought process, because she wants to take herself, conceptually, she's in this toxic environment. So she wants to minimize herself in the toxic environment. If she completely removes herself 100%, then now it's going to cause, I don't know, maybe the parents might wake up, but most likely they're just going to, go ballistic on her. So we want to sort of keep the parents, in a minimal capacity, okay, but we want to conceptually bring her into a productive environment, which is healthy for her development, for her deen, for her dunya, for her akhirah, and so on. So again, with minimal information, but conceptually this is what I would see, that we want to bring her into this type of environment. So where that environment can be found is a separate discussion, but if she has something close by her, she has, a group of sisters, she has a local masjid where they have some sisters activities, where they have sisters Halaqah or something like that. She has a group of friends that she can attach herself to, who are going to help her grow in the right direction. Then that's what I would be looking for, black box model for what she needs to do with the bulk of her time.
And if the parents have a problem with that too, I know some parents, they have a problem with their daughters like doing religious things, even though like it's probably the best option compared to every other option out there.
Absolutely. Well, are they actually aware of what she's doing?
Yes, yes.